My name is Conor MacNeill. I'm a travel and landscape photographer based in Belfast, Northern Ireland. I mainly shoot landscapes, cityscapes, astro landscape and some deep space photography. That's basically just based in my garden. For when I'm not traveling the world, I wanted something to shoot when I'm at home. So I picked the most expensive part of photography and getting fancy tripods and trackers and cameras and controllers and mounts and telescopes, and very steep learning curve, very expensive hobby, but really good fun. Basically, you have a tripod, you need a specialised mount that tracks the rotation of the Earth, so it keeps all the stars in the frame. Then you have a specialised cooled astro camera that always sits at about -10 degrees, and then whatever lens you want. And then often you have a little tiny controller that mounts to that, and that can sort of control the speed of the mount and keep it in time. So you can do exposures of 5–10 minutes of the stars and you don't get any movement. Well, with the astro stuff, it doesn't travel because it's way too big and heavy. For everything else, I can sort of mix and match, but I have a core sort of setup that I take that I've developed over the last 15 years of sort of travel photography, where it's kind of the most bang for the buck, as it were, where I kind of need the lightest setup, but with the most versatility. So maybe it's not the greatest quality lenses, but it's good enough and light enough to be able to hike up a mountain or get on board a plane. That's kind of the two sides of my styles of photography. Yeah, I always tell people you need to buy the best equipment for you, and that could be anything. I found that a lot of friends of mine are sort of street photographers and will do a lot of candids on the street. But if they have a big fancy lens and a big flashy mirrorless or DSLR, people take notice. But they have a smaller camera that looks like a point and shoot. People tend not to notice, or they act more natural with it. So that's often the best camera for them. For people that are based in a studio, maybe they can get big fancy medium format cameras and that's fine. But for people that are traveling a lot or hiking a lot, maybe you need smaller, more lightweight equipment. So you have to really discover and go on your own photographic journey to find what really suits your style. I mean, the bag that I use is the Talopa. I've used a variation of the Talopa for probably 15 years now, long before I became an ambassador for f-stop. I was an avid f-stop user, and I think it's the perfect size for me because it fits in the overhead compartment on a plane, just about. It's the biggest size for that. And that means I can bring the maximum amount of gear, whether that's photography gear or photography and clothing, because sometimes I might go backpacking around Southeast Asia and I just have hand luggage, including my photography gear. So I need a pretty big bag, but it has to be able to fit comfortably on a plane. And then once I get to whatever location I'm going to, it has to be comfortable enough to wear for 8 hours a day under pretty rough conditions, whether that's hot sun or torrential rain or windstorms or sandstorms I've been in. So it's pretty handy bag to have, but it's very durable as well. I have multiple packs and multiple ICUs just because I love the f-stop gear, and it's always good to experiment and try different things. But on the whole, I will tend to use my Talopa and then have various ICUs that I put in it. So for holiday, for just traveling around on my own, often I'll have a minimal setup, 2 lenses, camera body, some filters, and my tripod. And that does most things. That'll do 80% of what I want to do. Sometimes if a client asks me to add in some wildlife photography, then I need perhaps some of my bigger lenses. And if it's a very important job, a couple of camera bodies will come with me, so the pack size increases. Or if it's something like a hotel shoot, which I do, then I will maybe need some macro lenses or some faster lenses for shallow depth of field, for detail shots. But then again, it's the same pack generally, and then I'll change the ICU depending on which lenses I need for the job. Sometimes with the drone, I can put that into my ICU as well. So yeah, my work can vary slightly, and I need to be able just to swap in and out. Sometimes if I'm bringing a lot of checked luggage, then I can get away with a slightly smaller bag. So I go for the Ajna or something along those lines, but often still with the same ICU setup. That's the good thing about the f-stop system, that sort of modular system, is where you can have a couple of different packs and a couple of different ICUs and mix and match. Because you might find one that you prefer 75% of the time, but it's when you get that other 25% that you can really, oh, this works perfectly for me. So it's very good to get a few things and try it out, because you might find a way that you haven't thought about before, and that then becomes your favorite thing to use. Well, so 2 years ago in Macedonia, I was walking down the street with Druid, and I got very excited because in the distance I thought I saw a dog. And as people who know me know, I love animals, especially dogs. So I got very excited, started going towards the dog. Turns out it was a small school child with one of those rucksacks that looks like a dog with the little legs and stuff. So I asked Druid if he could make me an f-stop backpack that looks like a shaggy dog. And he said it's possible, but I'm still waiting for that. I mean, I think it's sort of two sides of it, where you have the sort of the genre of the photography, whether it's cityscape or landscape, and you could do that at home, you know, especially if you live in a beautiful country. Then there's plenty of opportunities where you might just pack a bag for a day, go out driving, get some great photos. You're still a landscape photographer, but then there's people that are more like my style, where I will do landscape and cityscape, but often on the other side of the world. So I'll have to get all my equipment to the location, and then maybe I'll have to backpack for a day and then hike a little bit. So it's trying to balance all that. It's the same style of photography as the person that stays at home, but it's a whole different process of actually getting there. Yes, I mean, well, I love traveling, and my photography is actually born out of my love for travel. I didn't specifically hunt out travel photography or landscape. I started traveling many years ago and really enjoyed it, but I travel on my own most of the time. So to stop me getting bored, I started to do photography, to something to pass the time, and I ended up enjoying photography so much that I became a photographer, and I would travel to take photographs. So therefore the traveling is so integral to my photography. A lot of people say you could stay at home, take your local landscapes or go around your local city and photograph that, but that's not really the thing that gives me the joy. It's the traveling as well. So for being like travel landscape photography, that really pairs it for me. Yes. When I talk to my landscape photography students, I always tell them, and this sounds counterintuitive or counterproductive, but that landscape photography is really quite easy. You just have to be in the right place at the right time, and that's actually the hard part of it. So when I get a really good photograph, I'm just standing there, hit the shutter button, and I've let the light and the landscape do all the work for me. But it's been able to hike to that spot for sunrise or similar. That's the difficult part, and it's getting that mentality. Once you put in the effort, often the result is quite easy. Sometimes virtual scout, sometimes check out images from the area, just to give you an idea of what's there, and use apps to see where the sun's coming up or setting. But then often once you get there, it's always slightly different. So sometimes if I'm maybe doing a sunrise shoot, I would go there the day before, scout out, work out where the sun's going to be rising, where the people might be standing, if there's going to be people there, and just to find out how to get there. Maybe I think it's going to take me 20 minutes, but the day before it takes me an hour. So then I know, right, I need to leave earlier in the morning, otherwise I'm going to miss sunrise. So a little bit of planning goes a long way. I think workshops can be very important, not just for the learning experience. You know, I've been to a lot of workshops where people turn up and think they sort of know a lot, but then they've seen different ways of doing things. So they learn from not just me, but other participants. But I also think the camaraderie and the networking of the workshops are great fun, where you can find like-minded people, where you can then share your work to or get feedback and make friends for life. So there's a friendship aspect, and there's a travel aspect, and there's the photography aspect, all within one workshop.